Welcome everybody. So excited for today. If you have ever wondered why your best looking ads, the ads you have labored over, you've spent hours refining, you've given your designer 20 rounds of feedback on, why those ads aren't performing, well, we're going to answer that today. And to go deep into this topic, I am so excited to have Dominique joining us on the program. Dominique is the child of the internet. You heard that right. He built his first website at I think like the age 10 and has been dominating the web ever since. He has been the creative driving force behind many of the ads for brands you definitely know, you've definitely seen, you've probably bought from them. Dominique has been there, done that. He has seen it all in terms of ad creative. He has even made his own gossip blogs back in the day, bringing them back, navigating all the monetization models. Welcome to the show, Dominique. Anything I missed?
No, you said it all. Hey, Jordan. So excited to be here. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, so as we're going through, feel free to leave any comments. We'll be moderating the chat as best we can. So if you have questions, shout us out. But today's topic really is focused on how do we get ads that actually convert, and why is it the ones that we've spent all of our blood, sweat, and tears on, why aren't they working? So let's get into it. Some of you have probably heard the phrase ugly ads. You know, this has really caught wind. It's become a movement. I think Barry was one of the main proponents of it. And we agree, ugly ads sell. Ugly ads drive purchases. It's often not the most beautiful design, unfortunately, that does it. But Dominique, before we get too deep into it, I really want to kind of hear your take on why should founders who are maybe hesitant to test into ugly ads, first off, like what is an ugly ad and what does that mean or not mean? And why should they care?
Yeah, so an ugly ad to me is definitely something that can be viewed as kind of text heavy, for an example, or a video that is lower resolution or not shot with like a 4K cinema camera, something that is oftentimes lower effort and kind of just doesn't look like it was done professionally. And sometimes they could have been created by professionals. So ugly ads are those just like they're often more native or look like somebody that you know made
Mm.
them, or you made them on Canva or something like that. Something that's more templatized and not like super refined, or like they had this huge agency come in and spend tens of thousands of dollars on the photo shoot and sat there and tried to get the lighting right and all of that. Yeah, it's just really simple.
That makes sense. You know, why is it that sometimes the pretty ads, the ones like you said, they've spent thousands or tens of thousands of dollars between getting the assets created to the final production. What are people missing? Like they're investing all this time and all this energy. Why don't they work?
I think it's just kind of a waste of money, to be honest. I think you have to reach a certain point as a brand to really have like brand recognition. And I think of larger brands like Target or Walmart or T-Mobile, where you know their colors before you even they
Mm,
flash their logo at the end of the commercial. You know what brand this is because they've spent time and money year after year already establishing that presence. And a lot of the clients that we work with and a lot of e-commerce brands don't have that mind share or that market share yet. So it is best to be more scrappy and to learn from just kind of the more simplistic, low effort, just like easy to get up and out ads versus putting together a whole photo shoot that's going to cost you thousands of dollars. You could use your cell phone with some good lighting, indoor, outdoor, whatever the case may be for your product, and just go native, because people on the platforms that we're advertising next to your family, your friends, your interests, your politics, all of this. So we want to be thumb stopping. So that's why I understand why people would think, oh, the way for me to stand out is to invest in this photo shoot that has great lighting and is great photography. But honestly, it's more about the message that you're telling and the pain point that you're solving and just what you're communicating more than what it looks like, to be honest.
that makes sense. You bring up a really good point, and that's about understanding the context of the conversation you're having with this person and really internalizing this is a one-to-one communication. I'm reaching Jordan in her jammies, like on her couch, scrolling at 8 p.m. after getting off the phone with her mom, you know, which is such a different context than I think traditional media. Um, at the end of the day, we're consuming a lot of this stuff in our homes, but even the context of what's in the feed, what's going to be before and after this ad, is this aesthetic going to trigger somebody's BS radar so they immediately just zone out? Because I think a lot of people's brains have gotten really good at, in a matter of micro milliseconds,
Yes. That is the biggest
registering.
thing. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is the thing that I've noticed. Consumers are just way more savvy, especially with the advent of Facebook ads and just digital marketing. People just internet culture. I think now people do more research in terms of like reviews and watching
Mm,
YouTube videos about a specific product or a brand before they just buy blindly. So it's really about making sure that you have content that speaks to your audience directly. And we often say internally, like in our agency, like holding up a mirror to the customer so they feel like you're speaking directly to them or they're speaking to themselves. And so I think in the traditional way of marketing, you couldn't really do that in the way that you can now because you would have to invest so much in these commercial shoots or these photo shoots and the paid placements in magazines or billboards or whatever it may be, where it's like you can't have these different variations where we can interface with about like 10 different creators from 10 different walks of lives, 10 different age groups, 10 different races. Like we can really mix it up and then start really showing the different customers different avatars of themselves. And I know a lot of like marketing has been persona based over the past however many years. It's probably always been persona based to be honest, but like it's I think that that's something that we're still we're still dealing with it, but I think it's evolving in a different way where it was like back in the day you had this assumed persona and you just like built everything for that assumed persona from top to bottom, and now it's a little more open-ended and flexible. And I think that because the original point you made, like people are just they have more discernment and they have more consumer knowledge, they don't fit into these buckets the way that they used to. And so you really
hmm
have to speak to the pain points or to the value proposition and just really kind of like cut through all of the noise and really speak their language. Like if you're selling a product and it's too scientific, for example, it may go over some consumers' heads, and it may be better just to speak to the results or the actual product versus all of the science behind it. So,
Oh, that is such a great example. I definitely want to go deeper into that. Before we do, though, I want to really double down on what you've already said. Like, what I hear Dominique saying is the ugly ads aren't just ugly because we don't care. They're, quote, ugly because we need to connect with people where they are in a way that they are going to be open to receiving. And so this entire conversation is still so relevant to eight-figure brands. Everything we were talking about earlier, associating that bright magenta with T-Mobile, associating, the Walmart logo, the Target bullet, like those are still way more massive in terms of their brand budgets. And so the rules of the game for them are different. And even still, you still see Target and
mm-hmm.
Walmart working with influencers to
Yep,
make ugly ads, even
yep.
though they have spent tens of thousands of dollars on their more professional photo shoots. They have legions of design teams making sure things are pixel perfect. And even they get this.
Yep. Yep. I mean, it. You have to think about the fact that the content that you're viewing on these platforms, it's not beautiful. You don't seek out a beautiful meme. You're there for the value of the humor. So it's like
Yeah.
you kind of have to approach that from a marketing standpoint a similar way where you want to be. I mentioned before like infomercial, not infomercial, infotainment. You want to be
Mm.
educational, but you want to inform. You want to entertain. So it's a little more challenging than it used to be because you used to just be able to put up a product and if it looked good, if it was cute or whatever, then it would sell. But now, there's so much noise and so much competition that you really have to show what your unfair advantage may be or what your differentiating factor may be. So and the best way to do that is often through humor or education or something that they can find some sort of value in and not just watch passively. You have to want to get them engaged, and emotional triggers still work. They'll always work to get the user to feel something, and you could still do that through photography and videography, but it needs to be paired with an intention, especially if you're focusing on conversions and not just like brand awareness and kind of top of funnel things.
That totally makes sense. I mean, when you spell it all like out like this, it's very obvious. Super intuitive even. Um, why do you think so many brands and so many founders are still getting stuck in this perfectionist brand trap, like over polishing? Why are they still getting stuck in that mindset?
I wish I had the answer to that question. I can only describe kind of like what happens in kind of like the process where we'll go to try to come up with something, and if it doesn't quite meet the previously existing brand standards, then it'll hold us back from launching and learning. Yeah, Barry, I see ego. It really probably
Yeah.
is. It really. I try to be nice and diplomatic, but it really is ego, and oftentimes your ego just kind of it does limit you. I think a lot of founders think that they are their customer, and so they try to get in the heads of their customers and assume a lot of things versus just launching, learning, failing, and just
Hmm.
growing fast. The faster you can fail, the faster you can learn from it and move forward. So I think everybody just gets caught up in thinking that their brand is larger than it is, which is their ego. And like going back to my original point, if you guys had a brand like Walmart or Target where you have this recognition, then I could understand that. But even as Jordan said, they're still getting in the trenches, getting their hands dirty, and
Yeah.
collaborating and creating their version of ugly ads. And I think it's possible for every brand.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks so much, Barry. Thank you so much. I mean, so for those who don't know, Barry really popularized this phrase, ugly ads, that we are leveraging ourselves here. I think, this is such a powerful concept and idea. And I think that phrase, ugly ads, really gets to the heart of something that a lot of us have seen play out over and over and over again in paid media, but didn't necessarily have like that powerful language to really communicate to clients what exactly we're talking about. So thanks, Barry. Thanks for dropping us a comment. Yeah, I think ego is right. I mean, it's funny. You were like, I wish I had the answer because I know, Dominique, you navigate this
Yeah,
constantly,
daily, literally
constantly.
daily.
Yeah. So maybe we could get into um, some examples or just like different things you've seen.
Yeah.
I know you work a lot in the supplement space, in the apparel space, even in the digital apps space. So we could really start anywhere. But what are some examples of maybe ad ideas that a founder or team was just super dogmatic about, um, where probably too many resources were invested? Uh, could you share like some examples of some flops of creative that were really well produced from a technical perspective?
Yeah. Yeah, one that comes to mind is a supplement brand that we've been working with for I think maybe 2 years now, if not 2 years, going on 2 years. The first launch that we had that they brought some creative from their designer that they had been working with. Fantastic looking creative, like absolutely beautiful. Would probably do better on a YouTube channel if it were long form content. It there were a lot of animations, there were voiceovers. Like theoretically it should work. It was conversion focused, it had testimonials, it had so many different components that we would put in ads later, but it was just overwhelming. It was too, they have a specific brand color that was just everywhere, and yes, it's thumb stopping, but it's also will make you want to scroll past it because it's just very monochromatic. It was just overwhelming, just so much going on, and you didn't quite understand what the product was, even though the product was front and center. And so to
Hmm.
me, those click-through rates were decent, but the conversion rates just weren't there. And so fast forward months later, we kind of pivoted and simplified things and just started focusing more on value propositions or feature benefit callouts. And
Mm.
now we're a completely different place than where we were. Things are still up to their standard of design and they still look good, but we implement a lot more text on screen, like than even more. I would say there's more text in the static images than there was in some of the videos, and that text is resonating more with the audience, and it's clear what the product is and what the benefits and the value is. Yeah,
I'm so intrigued by something you said. You were like, the product was front and center, but it was still totally unclear what it was. What,
yeah.
how?
There just so many distractions.
Oh,
I think people think transitions and all of these like effects really make it seem polished and higher production, which it takes more effort, yes, but a lot of that is lost in translation, and I think it also can be off-putting for a consumer. They may get the perception that this is not the brand for them because it's too overproduced and too expensive. So they may not even click through because this just seems like something that is not attainable and out of their reach, whether that's financially or just in
mm,
terms of not understanding the true value or the benefit of the product, because it's a supplement. It's a supplement that could technically be used by everybody, but I don't think that that was clearly communicated the way that we communicate it now. And the number of strategy sessions where we've had with the client to try to get them to realize, like, hey, maybe this isn't connecting because we're not speaking their language, and we're not clearly speaking to what problems they have and how we can solve them.
yeah, that makes sense. I know I overshare this little quip, but watching reality fashion TV in the 2000s, I think is where I picked this up, and I don't know where, so we'll just credit the general grouping of them. When you are accessorizing, take the last accessory you put on off.
Yeah. Oh, Coco Chanel that
Is that Coco
quote is
Chanel?
attributed to her. I don't know if that's true or not, but based on the things that I've heard before,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. In terms of now in my personal style, I disagree. But when it comes
Ads.
to actually creating effective ads, I agree. All of the distractions oftentimes just get in the way and the message is lost. And I think back to one of my original points where the founder thinks that they are the customer and they're trying to
Mm.
sell to themselves versus, if you hire us, let us do our job, let us test, let us really figure out what the customer responds to. If we're scoped for, let's say we're doing creative experiments, so we're scoped for one experiment per month. I say it's going to take 3 months before we really know what the audience really responds to and what they really like. And that may sound like a lot of time to some people, but in those 3 months, like, we're learning along the way, and those 3 months could be as scrappy as they need to be. And I wouldn't say let's start with this huge photo shoot that you need to spend tens of thousands of dollars for. Let's just get some UGC. Let's get you in front of, if you're a founder, get you in front of your phone telling the story, because a good ad portfolio, I took some notes about what I think is in a good ad portfolio, and we'll go over that in a
Mm.
little bit, but like, it includes a couple of different things just based on the accounts that I have exposure to. And a lot of times it's the same kind of common concepts that we see work, and it just is tailored to fit each of the brands or the services.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Definitely make sure we circle back to your hit list because I think that'll be super valuable for people. Are there any other flop examples that we can heed warning from?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar. Another is a fitness platform that we had as a client. They have these really highly produced videos that are in these studios and look gorgeous, like they're amazing. But in terms of ad
Hmm.
creative, they did not translate. We did a lot of persona based experimentation where it was for specific programs for specific users that had, whether it was back pain or whatever the case was, and they just didn't really connect in the same way that UGC did. As soon as we launched UGC, it took off and it was the best performing creative that we had probably almost a year into the engagement, because we wanted to test their hypothesis, all of their hypotheses, to see if, the different personas, if there was some room between either of these personas. And there's been
Hmm.
like 4 or 5 different personas that we tried, but once we went a little more broad and started speaking to just the actual value of the platform being accessible anywhere, anytime, that resonated a lot more with the consumer base. And that UGC, we worked with a couple of different creators, and that just really took off and performed better than some of the other stuff that they had done, which was a lot of like static imagery. It was a challenging account because the fitness space that they're in, there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of the competitors have they're a lot more modern. They connect with your Apple devices, your fitness devices, excuse me. So it was kind of hard for them to stand out, but just once we were able to launch the UGC campaigns, it was so much better than the highly stylized and super fast cuts and all of this really great looking video, but it just didn't really mean anything, it seemed, to the audience.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Have there been times where you've had an ad, and I know there have. I've been there for some of them. Um, that you're like, okay, this has potential, but out of nitpickiness, we couldn't run it.
Yes, yes. Anything from like the wrong font or
Mm,
the wrong color or a mispronunciation of the brand name. I think the more scrap you are and the more willing you are to just let things be, the more you can learn. I think of an ad that we have running right now from one of our brands that is a top performer. Even as somebody who embraces ugly ads, I would have never thought to create an ad like this. To just describe it, it is a 1 second video, essentially a still image in video format, kind of the old school hacks that we used to use back in the day,
yeah.
where we had to turn something into a video because we knew video was king. It's taking that same principle, and it's really not a well lit photo. It's not a great product photo, but it has been a top performer for multiple weeks now, and in conjunction with some other creatives. But it just is nothing I would have ever recommended to a client. But sometimes it's worth testing those things that you just swear wouldn't work, because it could be that lift that your account really needs.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, the one about you like creators mispronouncing brand names, it happens all the time, actually. The more
Yeah.
and more we work with influencers, because we work across different platforms and work directly with creators, it's kind of
Yeah.
funny. Like I wouldn't have necessarily anticipated it because some of these, also when you're in it, it's hard to um kind of
Yeah.
guess how other people are going to interpret it. But I've seen some awesome UGC stay on the cutting floor because the customer mispronounced the name, but guess what? The customer is probably buying your stuff alone in their home on their phone. And whatever they think your brand name sounds like, why not?
That's yeah. I mean,
Like,
they're think about designer brands, high fashion labels that people don't know how to say the name accurately, but they still buy the product. Are you going to stop them from buying your product because they mispronounce the name?
mhm.
It's just so silly and menial. I don't think that it's. I think you should always just push forward, test whatever you have, and just work around it. If it's really, I don't know, brand sensitivity, I understand it, but I don't think until you're at a certain spend level where you're spending millions of dollars a month on ad spend, should you really be worried about that. And even then, I could
Even
still, there's
then.
an argument against being that sensitive, because all it does is delay things, and it delays learnings, it delays launches, it just delays everything, to be honest.
Yeah, and like if that's what the people, again, it's like about holding that mirror up. If that's what the people think, if that's how they're saying your name in their head, like meet them where they are.
Yep.
So they buy instead of trying to like control every aspect of the perception, because at the end of the day, like what brand really is how other people feel about and perceive you and what you do. That's what brand
Yes.
is. It's not a list of hex codes, and like it's not that. It's
These,
how
yeah,
do you make
this
other people feel?
exactly. Yeah.
And they're right. They're right. It is so much easier to meet a potential customer in their current psychological state where they are than to try to convince them that they're
Like,
wrong.
yeah, exactly. And try to like bring them into your kind of thought process. It's
Hmm.
just, it's so much more work.
Hmm.
So much
Time
more
and
work.
place. I'm sure we could think of examples where, like
Yeah.
uh life coaching or whatever. But even still, you have to be careful about how far you go in challenging somebody's psychological landscape in their interior, especially in an ad, because like we're just trying. You can like create curiosity or have someone question something, but that's anyway. We're getting down a rabbit hole. I see Cindy left as a comment, what's an example of an ugly ad for an author? And how would you recommend gaining reader attraction to a book that's endorsed? I know we're not going deep on selling books today, but Dominique, do you have any ideas for ugly ads that might work?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just the author themselves telling the story of how the story came about. That could be a quote unquote ugly ad where it's just you sitting in a nice space. It still should be presentable. I'm not saying go sit in front of like a dumpster or anything. You know, get some good lighting, tell the story, and I would say just do a couple different cuts. Just the one thing is just have different hooks. Always start with different hooks, different things that you think would be entertaining and interesting that would get people to actually want to tune in and stop their scroll. And then just kind of take it from there. Launch a couple of different ones. I would say 3 to 5 different variations and see what people connect with, and then kind of just iterate from there. It doesn't have to, you don't have to overcomplicate it. I would say that the video is probably going to connect better than like a static image, because just seeing the book, you're going to be judging a book by its cover, literally. So I don't know if that's the best case, but yeah, just being able to kind of give some context around the story, some context around the author, and just the whole process, and just make it feel personable. Make it feel like you are talking to your best friend and you're telling them about the hard work that you just accomplished as an author. That's
I love that
bit of advice.
Yeah, I mean, it can be scary to like make these videos and put it out there. Cindy, I don't know like where you are on this journey, but I will say every single founder I work with feels really cringy about the ads that they're in. It's super normal. I don't know that it goes away. Maybe for some people it does. But yeah, like, and you can do it too, where maybe make it modular, meaning, you know, Dominique gave great advice, like try several different hooks. So maybe come up with 3 to 5 opening statements and or visuals. Visual hooks, I think, are really important these days. It's not necessarily enough to have different phrases that you say at the beginning. And then you could test more bodies and the closing call to action or whatever, but I would focus most of the energy on, okay, what are the first 30 seconds to 5 seconds, and have some variance there. And then you could even have like the same content after that. Also, it may not need to be longer than that depending on what you're doing. But I love this approach of just talking about what gets you excited about the book, like maybe even who it's for. So you could even directly address. I know there's a trend on Instagram right now that's kind of like, hey, I'm looking for all the soft life girlies who want to slow down, whatever it is. You know, that could be one hook. But yeah, there's
just
so
directly
many.
call out your audience. That's a good one. And just, I don't know, my biggest takeaway and kind of piece of advice would be to kind of just lift from who's doing it well. If they're seeing success, find what they're doing and analyze that and find a way to make it work for yourself. Think about, you know, what's making, just as you're watching content, don't do it passively. Observe, like, okay, what made me actually stop? What was the hook? What kept me watching? Because I think the metric that matters most across most platforms now is really watch time more than anything. And that includes ads, especially if you have video ads. Like, you want to create content that, you want to create ad units that feel like content almost, but you are clearly advertising and letting them know that this is the solution to their problem, or just giving them some information. And so they click through and learn more, either about the product or the brand.
Yeah, we don't want to be shy about selling.
Yeah.
Like, we're selling the thing.
Yeah, I'm like, otherwise it becomes like brand awareness, and then you're not conversion focused, and it's just, you're just giving money to Meta or Google or whatever platform you're on, or TikTok. Whatever.
Time and place. Thanks, Cindy. Cindy says, I think you all nailed it. I'm afraid to get behind the camera. The ones that I see making it are those that are sharing their author journey. I had an agent pitching to Hollywood and publishers, and now I'm going the indie route, but I'm loving it. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for your question.
Yeah,
Feel free to reach out if you have more. And yeah, you're going to rock it. The hardest thing
for sure.
is just filming yourself, and it's going to feel weird, and that's okay.
Yes. I mean, I still feel weird doing it, and I've been doing it for I don't know how many years, but at least, I mean, I would say do it somewhere where you feel comfortable, whether that's in your own home or, with somebody that you trust that can kind of be like you're talking to them, so you maybe don't feel like you're just talking to the air or a camera, as oftentimes you will be. But yeah, I mean, my grandmother is a independent artist, excuse me, independent author, artist
Ooh,
too.
I
But
didn't
so
know
I
that.
have a little bit of kind of just experience with guiding her and seeing what she did working with different publishers and just kind of what the goal is to promote or how they go about promoting the books now. And I think I gave you the same advice I gave her, like be comfortable telling your story on camera because no one can tell it as well as you can, and people are going to connect with your emotion and your love and your passion for the book that you've written. So I think, as Jordan said, some tips, just be in different places and just practice on getting comfortable in front of camera as much as you can. It may not ever come, but it definitely gets better the more you do it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. Like doing this kind of thing used to freak me out.
Yeah.
And anytime I context switch, like if I'm like presenting a new thing or working on a new product, then suddenly my stage fright kind of comes
Yeah.
back. It's really weird.
So true.
Cool. So I think we covered a lot of the flops. Um, oh, one other thing. I have a question. What if I have old ads? Like, first, what do you think about ad fatigue? Is it real? Is it a myth? When do we care? And like, is my old creative just too stale? Should I stop using it?
I That's a tricky question. Like, there are cases where ads can fatigue, but it's often the case where if you were to launch something to support it, it could see a second lease on life. I think about one of the supplement brands we were talking about earlier. We had an ad that was a top performer that we had turned off before but turned back on again. And it started to get expensive week over week, but we launched something else to support it, and it became one of our most efficient ads. So I'm never with the way that, well, I'll speak for Meta. Things have changed a lot in the past year where Meta is a lot better at allocating spend where it thinks there are opportunities in a way we kind of had to manually kind of pull
Mhm.
the levers and try to get it to spend for
Or we thought
maybe a
we
year.
did.
Uh, we did. We had some control for a
Okay.
minute. For a
Okay.
minute, we did.
Okay. Yeah, I hear
Gone are
you.
those days, though.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of just making sure that you have the creative and the cadence of launching the creative to support it. Because there can be a week where, well, in my example, there were 2 to 3 weeks where things were just looking pretty bad, but we never turned the ad off. We just kept waiting it out, and we kept launching new things. I think almost like weekly or bi-weekly
Hmm.
to assist it, and that ad is still live. The new stuff that we launched is still live. The stuff that we launched after that is live now too. And so that combination of those kind of that cadence and then the amount of creative that we launched all supported that one ad that was quote fatiguing. So yes, it can fatigue, but what can you do to solve that fatigue versus turning it off is kind of the approach I take now. Because if you turn off the one that was fatiguing was our volume driver. So what if you turn off your volume driver, then you are allowing the machine learning to allocate the spend across the other ones that maybe it doesn't think can support the account or the goals that you've set. And
Hmm.
so you introduce volatility inherently by doing that, because now you've cut off the one that was driving results. Maybe it was a little inefficient, but it was driving volume. And so now it has to try these other units that it wasn't as confident in to begin with, which is why it didn't really spend into them. So it's I live in accounts now in a way that I didn't used to, because I just like to. I don't day trade like we used to. I definitely look at the week over week but in that week, what am I noticing throughout the week in terms of a couple of different ad units and kind of the trend that they've been setting over the past
Mm-hmm.
couple of weeks? Especially, after we launch something, we expect it to be a little volatile. And over time, it should improve. But if it doesn't improve, that's when we take a look at it and see, like, is this something we should pause out? Versus, like, did this fatigue? Like, no, maybe it just wasn't good enough.
Ooh, that hurts.
It's the truth. Not everything we launch is always a winner. And that's why you got to be ready to fail fast and continue forward just as fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
And
why
on the
it's really
yeah.
that's why it's crucial to not get in your own way about being super sensitive about the brand and needing everything to be pixel perfect, because that's a day or an hour or a week, whatever the turnaround time is, of not really learning from what could be sales and could be the next thing that really just transforms the account and sends you down a different path that you would have never gone had you not given it the time.
Yeah, a theme that's emerging from what you're saying, Dominique, is let the people tell you what they want, what they like, what they respond to, and not assume.
Yeah. That's the worst thing you could do is assume that you know your customer. That's the whole purpose of, I would say, Meta is a great tool to learn your customer, because once you start learning more, then you can start communicating more effectively, and then you always test. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and just assume you know everything from a couple of tests. Always push the boundaries. Always try. Everybody always has a specific hypothesis about what they think about their customer base. Test those,
Yeah.
but don't stay stuck on them. I think some of the brands that we've seen struggle is where they've spent tens of thousands of dollars for a company to tell them who their customer is, only for that company to be wrong
Oof.
about it on Meta. I'm not gonna say in general, and like, it's not. I don't want to make a sweeping, broad statement saying that the company or the market research is that wrong. I think it kind of gets you in a ballpark, but depending on where you're advertising, your audience may be different, and that's why it's good to be scrappy, because you need different sorts of ads for different audiences and different demographics.
Is investing in a brand agency a good investment?
If you're starting your business or if you're doing a rebrand, I think it's always like, I'll just speak for us. When you come to us, it's going to help us if you have an idea of who your brand is, if you have the brand guidelines. But at the same time, don't be so married to them when it comes to ad creative, because your website is going to be a pretty good representation. 9 times out of 10, your website is going to be the the epitome of your brand, the pinnacle, the best representation. So we're just trying to get people to the website. So it may take something different to get them to the website, but once they're on the website, hopefully the website is optimized enough and has enough information so that they're able to make a decision in terms of their buying.
What would you say? Because I think in some cases I see it bear out, in other cases I totally don't. But there is this strong belief that the ad needs to highly match the website. What do you think about that? How do you think through that?
No, it doesn't. It just needs to make sense. What I'm clicking through needs to be related to what I'm landing on. That's the way it needs to look the same or feel the same.
Mm,
I shouldn't be clicking on something that's talking about soap and then I land on something that's talking about sheets. Like, what? Yes, the product is laundry detergent, but why is it not connecting from A to B? Like,
interesting.
if the ad is about soap, the landing page should be about soap, but it doesn't have to look the exact same. Like, the same creative doesn't have to be used, the same copy doesn't have to be used, the same brand aesthetic doesn't even have to be used. If that were the case, then all of Walmart's ads, including the ones they use with influencers, would be blue. Everything would be blue. Everything.
That's so true. Oof. Again, it's so fun how you're pointing to these bigger players and saying, "Look, they're not even following this dogma
Mm-mm.
that we've all kind of brainwashed ourselves into
Yeah.
thinking we must do. But
And
I
just like
like
there's
what you
time and place for that. Like,
Mhm.
if they're in a magazine, yeah, they're gonna make sure that you know their colors. But if they're on TikTok, their bag, their shopping bag is enough. There's so many other subtle ways, and I think it kind of brings me back to product placement in like music videos and movies, where it's
Ooh,
like you
yeah.
see the product, they're advertising, you can't miss it, but it's also wrapped in this entertainment or this other kind of packaging, so it's more interesting, and it's oftentimes like in the proper context. So if it's herbal essence, it's going to be the shampoo in the shower while the singer is singing in front of it, like it's always contextual. So I think taking some of those kind of approaches in marketing and applying that to some of your content strategy and your just infotainment digital marketing could
Mhm.
be really helpful.
That's cool. And what you're saying is we're making a promise to the customer in all of our comms. In the ad, we're making some type of implied promise about what it is that's possibly on the other side of this click. And we need to fill that promise. But
Yes.
filling that promise doesn't require strict adherence to specific aesthetics or even specific phrases, though that could help in some cases.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be this like copy paste, everything looks exactly the same from the ad to the website. And in fact, what works in those different environments is different.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to go even further, you could make custom landing pages that fit more the aesthetic of the feed, that fits the aesthetic of the placement where the ad is.
Yeah.
I think that's more powerful than trying to make the ads look like the
Yeah.
website.
For sure. Yeah. And then if you're just trying to get the ads to look like the website, you're going to run out of creative just energy and concepts, just everything, because it's only going to be based on this one thing versus kind of stepping outside, and you won't be able to ride the wave of trends or
Mm.
design trends. Because think about when everybody was using the Studio Ghibli filter or the AI generator. Like, there were some ads that we ran for a temporary amount of time for one of our clients that used some of those trendy AI generations, and they converted. They weren't sustainable, they weren't
Hmm.
evergreen, but they were some quick wins just to try to test something at the request of the client.
Nice. And those definitely didn't match the website.
Not at all.
Yeah, not at
Not at
all.
all. But it was seasonal, it was relevant to the holiday, and it got them some additional wins.
And we could do a whole other show, and maybe we will, about landing page design and web aesthetics, because you were saying, okay, the website is kind of the beacon of the brands.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, we've seen a lot of beautiful websites that don't convert.
Yeah.
And that's a problem too.
Yes, yes, yes. As there are ugly ads, there are ugly sites, and ugly sites. There are quite a few sites that are just quote unquote ugly and look outdated or not modern that have stayed that way because the conversion rate. I think about the most popular e-commerce platform. It's ugly. Amazon is ugly, but it's
Mm-hmm.
functional. You, especially over time, you've kind of acclimated to where things are and you just know how to navigate it. But there is a lot of information when you land on the homepage. There are different, but it's intelligently crafted because there are different user journeys and they can take you down these paths. But it's not a beautiful, highly stylized website where there's animations and all of this stuff trying to tell a story. It's just all of the information is really accessible.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I wouldn't call it a low effort website.
Oh no.
Obviously, a lot of resources have gone into it, but it's more from a functionality perspective, a user experience perspective. I mean, the classic patented one click buy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's really taking function as the most important aspect and reducing the friction of the sale as much as possible, instead of trying to make sure that everybody knows what Amazon's colors are.
Yeah. Or what your brand ethos or motto or what you stand for. Like, just reduce the friction as much as possible across both the communication of what the value is of the product and then the journey to actually
Hmm.
acquire the product.
I love that. Um, Maybe we could switch to some wins. Like, what are maybe vibes or common elements? Oh, you said earlier you have a
Yeah, my hit
checklist,
list.
a
Yeah.
hit list. So maybe let's pivot to that. And
Yeah.
I know we had even more stuff potentially planned for today. If we get through all of it, great. If not, hey, stay tuned
Yes.
for our
There's
follow up.
always more.
But wait, there's
Yeah.
more. But yeah, let's get into your list.
For sure, yeah. Across most of the accounts that I see succeeding, there's like five comments. One is kind of overlaps with the other, but the concepts that I see really winning. So like feature benefit call outs, that's like nothing new. Clear solution to a pain point. So that's like more headline driven text with like a related image. That's similar to the feature benefit callouts, but I consider it a little bit different because this one's going to be a little more bold and like text heavy. The feature benefit callouts are going to have like the bullet points or like something pointing at the product and saying this is what it is, all that kind of stuff. The in terms of like video content, the founder story, this crushes it across virtually all of the accounts I see that the clients let us use it and test and find one that works. It isn't always the first one that we test. Sometimes it takes a couple different iterations or a couple different cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And to Cindy's point earlier about not being comfortable on camera, the more comfortable you get, the better off you will be. I have one of my clients, one of the founders is a dentist, and he was super afraid of doing it, but he's made 2 or 3 different versions so far, and they've continued to just kill it. Every time he does it, he seems to be more comfortable. The first time, to be honest, we had to use an AI voiceover because it was bad audio and we could not even hear. So there are ways to make it work still, even if you come up with something that isn't quite satisfactory. So just throwing that out there. But other than the founder videos, UGC and native style videos, and it doesn't have to be like actual like customers. You can always do the paid UGC creators. You can use friends, family. You can use yourself if you don't happen to be a founder but you work at the company. Similar to that and similar to founder videos, a new thing that I would love to start testing that I've seen work in accounts that we haven't tested a lot yet is just employee videos and just like people that work at the company and their kind of testimonials about how the products are made or what their favorite product is. It's like really trendy content on TikTok, and I can see a world where that could be more conversion focused if you just kind of tailor a couple of things and make it just like centered around either one product or one product line, and you just kind of get the employees to talk about it. And then another concept that I see work really well is just direct comparisons, the versus, the us versus them, the this is what they do, this is their benefits, and this is how we outmatch them and compete. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say between those five, I think that was five. Yeah, those five are. I would say that would create a well-rounded account, and they all seem pretty like. Of course, you should do that, but I can't tell you how many accounts right now probably don't have that mixture of even 3 of those 5, and it really is probably prohibiting them and just slowing them down from learning and actually scaling.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. Back to basics. Like, get the
Yeah.
basics.
Yeah. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not like we have these like super secretive hacks or like new ways of thinking about things. It's really just taking a step back and seeing what your brand or your product is doing and how you are communicating that just on a regular basis.
Hmm.
I think it takes just really a simple portfolio across those 5 things. And then, of course, there are always different things that you can add on top of that and you can experiment. But I feel like the accounts that are the most stable have a mixture of those 5 concepts in some way, at least 3 of those 5, if not all 5.
Cool. Well, let's get into our favorite infomercially
Yes.
brand. I have 3 examples we can take a look at. But I know you shared previously, people can really take inspiration from mediums that are not just social media. I know we've focused a lot on, okay, yeah, make sure you fit in the feed, you resonate, you're next to like Aunt Jan in the feed. So keep that in mind. But also, thinking about the other types of media that your demographic is taking in can kind of be an unlock. Like you can cross
Yeah.
apply some things. And in the example we're about to look at, the demographic skews a little bit older. They're more used to and accustomed to a more infomercial approach. I've even seen some brands that appeal more to millennials take like the
Good marketing
sham
work. Yeah.
wow
Yeah.
vibe in a fun way.
It works. There's a reason that it exists, and I think that more people should lean into it. And I think there's way you can adapt it to your brand. It doesn't have to be kind of like you're building a caricature or anything of the brand, and you don't have to be like super exaggerated. I think it's in the way that you present the information. It's
Hmm.
almost like, I don't want to say information overload, but it's like perfectly whelmed amount of
Yeah,
information where it's
I
like
like that.
you're the brand that we're going to get into, they have an ugly website and they have ugly ads, but they all look good, they all work well, and the conversion rate is pretty strong, and performance has been consistent because they have all five of those things that I mentioned previously. They
Hmm.
have the feature benefit callouts, they have the clear solution to a specific pain point because their product solves multiple different ailments and can be used to treat multiple different things, but we have started testing specifically into one ailment, and they have different versions of the founder story. They have countless versions of UGC,
Yeah.
and then they have the direct comparisons without directly naming their competitors, but kind of
Hmm.
alluding to who they are.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole episode too on like all the lessons we've learned from infomercials because
Yeah.
like you said, Dominique, they work for a reason. They are very tailored to specific psychological drivers and providing the right amount of information in the right order to really make someone comfortable solving their problem with you.
Yeah.
And I think the ads we're going to look at in a moment reflect that. But something you said they're ugly ads, but they look good. So I think for some of our audience that might feel contra.
Oxymoronic.
Yeah,
Contradictory.
exactly. So could you kind of just parse that out for us?
Yeah. Yeah, so they're ugly ads in the sense of what we said at the top of the conversation, where it may be a little more text heavy, it may be lower effort in terms of like the photography. The client that we're going to look at is the example I gave, where this is a static image turned into a video, but the static image is poorly lit. The product is kind of cropped out of the shot. So there are some examples of the ads that are just actually ugly, that convert well with them. But then there's some that are breaking some of the rules, where it's like, oh, maybe there's too much text, or maybe there's not enough contrast here, or the text might be too small here, or you can't read that badge, or some of the things that we would normally be a little cautious about, but it works because we took the infomercial approach. We saw that the website was very much like an infomercial squeeze page website. And once we started translating that to the ad creative, it's kind of going back to some of the other points we made, where it's like, the website needs to align with the creative, but it doesn't have to look the exact same.
Yeah.
So we started using more text and started being more descriptive about the product and the benefits of the product versus just kind of being as vague as we were at first and thinking, oh, if we're more vague, it'll get them to click through and learn more. No, we want to perfectly whelm them with all of the information and have them decide to click through to learn more because they're already intrigued versus trying to
Hmm.
just get them to be too curious.
Yeah. And this doesn't work for every audience,
No.
right? This approach does not work for every brand we work on, but I think it's just a beautiful example of testing outside of the comfort zone and meeting the customer where they are and
Yeah,
letting the market tell you how they want to be spoken to.
for sure. Yeah. And so this example right here, this is actually an AI generated image, but I don't know the exact prompt, but it does a good job at telling the story of receding gums. You see, your eye goes directly to the gum with the
Hmm.
highlighted area, then you see receding gums. It's not too late to act. It's just a perfect, simple but effective creative that this one's not as ugly as some of the things that we've done in the past, quote unquote ugly, but it's still there. This is not like a super high design, really just thoughtfully created and curated ad. It's just, we knew that we wanted to talk about gingivitis specifically, and we wanted to illustrate that, and the best way was through these AI generated images, because we didn't have images from the client that we could do this with. There wasn't stock photography that actually worked, so we had to get scrappy and we made up our own.
I'd be really curious if like real pictures would work or not, because I almost feel like it'd be too gross.
Yeah, and that's another point. I think it would be, and I also don't know like if that could get flagged
Oh, because the
in
fleshiness.
review. Yeah. So I think the kind of
Interesting.
step back from reality with using the AI generated, and I mean it still looks real and believable, but like I think we also have a trained AI eye, so
Yeah,
we're a
for
little more
sure.
discerning. But I think this is not it's not so AI generated where it looks inauthentic and it is distracting from the point that's trying to be made.
Yeah. And what's so interesting to me is if this came across my desk, I would have been like, "Hey, let's axe this bottom text. This is not legible. Let's axe this logo. You cannot even read or process them." But in this case, I'd be wrong because you guys have found in this project, it's like I'm going to be stereotyping, okay? If I'm thinking about like my mom who is legally blind without her well, she's had surgery recently, so but before she was legally blind without her
Mm-hmm.
glasses. I think her prescription is like -40 or something.
Yeah.
Um, like, seriously. And so like when she's looking, she'd be like pulling her glasses on and off. She's nearsighted, so like looking at it like this.
Yeah.
She's not taking in all the information, but like the impression of the layout of the information for this audience
Mm-hmm.
works.
Yeah, it's reaffirming, it's reassuring because it's similar to the infomercial where you see the text at the bottom that you can't really read, but
Yeah.
it's telling you something that may or may not be good. But in this case, this is good. Periactive supports gum health and helps prevent further recession. But,
Yeah, it's
you
not
know.
it's no gotcha messaging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else about this one, or should we look at the next one?
Let's move on.
Okay. This one, we have a ton of ads that are similar to this. Like,
Yeah.
there's probably 10 examples. I was tempted to pull them all in, and I was like, I think we can just look at one. But what they all have in common is just this text overload. They all have really good hierarchy, though.
Yes. That's why I said they look good, but they're ugly. They break some rules, but they follow other rules. So with I wouldn't say it's even overwhelming text. It's just a lot of text. So with the hierarchy, it definitely helps you start. You start at the top, or you might even start. There are different starting points depending on how you would
True.
read it. Obviously, not everybody's the same. I would start probably at the top and then kind of go down and around. But I can see a world where some people see the
Yeah,
twenty
I
five
think
percent
so.
off first, or the 10 times more effective. So they're all pretty big, but there's like little pockets of like information. It's like, okay, so this is the number one strength, clinical strength rinse. This is a first time offer I'm getting, and it's 10 times more effective than the competitors. Previously exclusive to dental clinics, and then we started getting into those kind of like more infomercial. The whole thing is very infomercial inspired because it's a lot of
Hmm.
information. It's a nice, really well doctored image that has like the decoration, the decor aspects of it, so it grabs your attention, but it's not distracting. It's the water splash, so you know that it's a mouth rinse. It's the mint, so you know that it's refreshing. And then you have the badges that you can't read at all, but
Yeah, you can't.
you know that it means something good.
You cannot read it. But like, my mom wouldn't have been able to read it, even
Yeah.
if it were bigger.
You see,
I love
I
you,
can see it
mom.
says something free, and I see like one of the medical signs. So those are good things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just so interesting because like these, and like I'm not a pixel perfect girl. Like I don't care. But even I would have been like, guys, really? Like, okay, if you say so, we'll test it. And this is just a tried and true template. It continues to
Yep.
work.
It continues to work. And I think it also just adds some visual balance and like weight in an area where it would have just felt barren.
Yeah.
So I see why the designers chose to do it. And, I was apprehensive at first too because I'm like, but thinking back to what we had learned about how the landing page and just the brand
Yeah.
itself was very much adjacent to this kind of design, it is not
So
surprising
true.
that it worked.
And in this case, the text becomes a design element.
Yep.
And the elements are clearly defined. You have
Yeah.
that top, you have like clear chunks
Mm-hmm.
with spacing that helps your brain know, okay, this is a group, this is a group, this is a group. So
Yep.
it's almost using this instead of using like embellishing shapes or
Mm-hmm.
waves or, whatever those other design brand elements might be. Like for this brand, the additional design elements are more text
Yep.
and it
Yep.
works.
I love
And
it.
then at the top, this is something if you have the AI features enabled in your meta ads, in the Instagram and Facebook ads, Facebook's already
Yeah.
adding a top bar and then pulling in automated text, either from your headlines or in some cases, it's writing the headline. So that
Yeah.
section in the top that has the green backgrounds, this is what the meta AI is doing
Yeah.
already. If a lot of people don't like how it looks,
Yeah. It doesn't look the greatest, but
but it
that is
clearly
leading
works.
into the ugly ad aesthetic, and it is obviously they believe in it or they wouldn't have launched it as a feature,
Yeah.
and it's still in, it's still learning in its learning phase with all of us as we use it or don't use it. But I think that they're going to work to improve it so that we end up using it, because I see a world where clients become less worried about the kind of AI add-ons and kind of let them do their thing because they've gotten better and they can overlay some things
Yeah.
to just hopefully give an additional lift on top of what we already have.
I think in this case, it probably is performative. Now, if you have brand concerns that trump it, sure. But it is currently, for most accounts, I'm seeing an opt out situation, not an opt
Yeah,
in
yeah.
situation. So if you don't like it, be wary. And even duplicating ads, I've seen like it will recheck all of the
Yep.
AI stuff
Hmm.
when you
They're
duplicate an
pushing it
ad.
hard. They're
They
pushing it
are.
hard.
And I get it. It's a clear, easy to read, high contrast statement.
Yep.
Whether or not you like it.
Yep.
I don't know if this sound's gonna play.
Periodontal
Can you hear
disease has
it?
been
Yeah.
associated with many, many serious systemic diseases, increased cardiac events, in other words, heart attacks, increased strokes.
Okay, we don't have to watch the whole 45
Yeah.
seconds. But you mentioned this ad earlier. Is this the
Yes.
one where it's the AI
It
voiceover?
is. That's hilarious that you pulled the AI voice one. Yeah.
We didn't
So
plan it.
yeah. So he, like, you see he's really confident, he's really excited about it. Not the best lighting. He's still kind of backlit, but you can still see him. So it's not overly produced where it's like, "Oh, this is just he knows what he's doing." So it makes it seem more approachable. But the AI voiceover definitely helped because I wish we had the original audio source because there was just a lot of ambient noise and
Yeah.
reverb, and so it just was less easy to understand. But I think without this at one point in time was one of the top performing ads for I think almost a month or two, and it still remains above like the top 5. And it's been I think 3, 4, maybe 5 months since this has launched. So I always advise the founders to get in front of the camera whether you're comfortable or not, because the beautiful thing is there is editing. If I
Yeah.
can't tell you, you would hate to see our raw takes of anything that we put together. You would be like, how is this even possible? Well, let me speak for myself. Jordan's a professional. She probably doesn't have
I
bad
don't know.
takes.
I showed some to my family, like the promos for this show. I showed somebody the stuff unedited, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, like how'd I do?" And they were like, "Well, your eyes kind of twitching, et cetera, et cetera." And then we
Harsh
got back the
critics.
edited stuff, and they were like,
Yeah.
"This is so cool," because
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'll speak.
So
I will, as a creator and as somebody who deals with this kind of creative content on a frequent basis. Your raw version is always going to be completely different than your final version. I just shot a wedding, and like when I took the
oh
pictures
yeah,
off the camera, I cried because I was like, "These are terrible. I hate them. They're not going to like them." And then I fast forward a week or two after I got the edits done. I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't stop smiling because I'm like, these
aw,
are great. I'm proud of myself. They liked them." So it's like you're gonna be your own worst enemy and harshest critic until you actually get the work done. And then if you don't want to do the edits, send it off, hire an editor. That is literally their job to make you look good. If you're not tech savvy enough or you don't have the discernment I know it's hard for me to edit myself because I'm like, oh, I think this is interesting. I find myself, I love myself. So I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm like, this is great. But like, I give it to somebody else. They're like, oh, this is boring. Cut this out. So,
Sure, yeah.
there are different ways to approach it.
It's hard when you're in it to really have an editorial eye sometimes. It's hard to do all things.
Yes.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Well, I'm glad the wedding photos turned out good.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Yeah, also, what strikes me about this video is like, we have the classic, like the millennial angle like that. And then these days, like I guess Gen Z is like doing the down up. So in some ways, this is a forward thinking camera angle.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, no.
Well, we definitely got more than an hour. How do you want to tie this up with a bow? If you're talking to a founder who's maybe stuck, plateaued, like their ad account is just not performing the way they want it to be or it used to be, what is most important that they take away from this?
The biggest thing I could say is to, one, take a look at the competition. Like, I think that everybody tries to reinvent the wheel and tries to be different than the competition, but no two people are the same. You and I could have the exact same prompt and be told to do the exact same thing, even have the same camera equipment, be in the same location. We will not create the same thing. So if you need inspiration, look at your competition and see what you like about what they're doing, and like, how can I tailor that and shape that to my brand, to myself, because it's going to take away some of that mental exhaustion and just that effort that you have to put in to try to be creative. It does take brain power to be creative, but if you can simplify things and just kind of have like a template where you're like, hey, this is X, Y, and Z that I just need to do. They had this hook here. They showed the product here for 3 seconds. And you just literally lift that. It will not be copying because you will not create the same thing, even if you have the exact same product.
Yeah, that's so true. And like, yes, zag where other people are zigging, like totally valid. But for a lot of things, let's be real. Like if a lot of people are doing it, there's probably a market for it. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's sometimes more eyebrow raising if you're trying to go find examples in your niche and there's no one.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on your goals. But like if we're talking e-commerce especially, or even like SaaS, if there's nothing out there, that probably means you're going to have to create a category and educate people, which is totally possible, but not easy. Mm-mm. But if you see examples out there, like you said, Dominique, don't be afraid to take that template. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the steal like an artist concept. And your interpretation is going to be unique to you, your frequency, your personality, your energy, your perspective. That's all unique to you as well. And your solution and your being is going to resonate with a particular subset of humans that the competition, even if they're doing something very similar, they're going to resonate with different people. And in many cases, like in most cases for e-commerce, especially, since this is the Shopify show, people buy for multiple brands. Yeah. It's not this like zero sum, like, oh, I bought a True Classics shirt, so I'm not going to buy a neat shirt. Like, you might have your favorite. There might be one where you're buying the 3 packs, but it's not actually the zero sum game. I think that sometimes we assume it is.
Yeah. And the last point I would make is just don't be so committed to the aesthetic of your brand. It doesn't matter to your audience the way it matters to you as either a founder or the person working at the company. They are oftentimes just being introduced to your product for the first time, especially through digital marketing, or even if you're retargeting, remarketing, they're being reminded. So you need to just be grabbing their attention. And grabbing their attention doesn't mean that you have to be using specific fonts, specific colors.
Yeah, no.
If anything, use your logo so they remember your logo. They're not going to remember your font or your colors from 1 to 3 ads. Like, they're just not.
No.
And it's going to take more than 1 to 3 ads for them to convert. So remember that. Try to build that portfolio. Try to be as diverse as possible with the different ad units you have. Have them look decent, of course. You want to represent your brand well, but like don't get so caught up in everything having to be pixel perfect. Don't do these huge production shoots when you could literally take your phone to a park and snap some pictures, or go into your garage and hang up a sheet. Just get real scrappy.
Yeah.
Spend less money to learn than you would, because it's going to expedite things and it's going to be more sustainable, because if your audience is trained and they are converting on mobile phone content, that's way more sustainable than if you get your audience used to these big budget shoots and that's all that you really are trying to do.
Cool. So don't overthink. Simplify. Just do it.
Yep.
Videotape yourself. Try it.
Yep.
See what works. And then reinvest.
Scrappy.
Be scrappy. I love it. Well, Cindy said we answered some questions she had at the end there. Thanks so much, Cindy, for your comments.
Yes, thank you, Cindy.
If anyone has recommendations, I don't know if that's the right word. If anyone has requests of future topics that we cover, feel free to leave us a comment wherever you're watching this, or you can find us at growthhit.com. We will be back next week. I can't remember who exactly is on next week, but every week we bring you a new show. So we'd love to hear from you. And Dominique, any parting words?
Nope, I think I've said all I can say.
Great. Love it. Well, we'll end it there. Have a great rest of your day and week, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.